I want to take you back to the golden era of gaming and uncover the stories, the world's first Easter egg discoveries, and controversy that many of you may never have known or forgotten in the 13 years since launch. From cheater drama to all-timer gaming moments, Black Ops 2 Zombies had everything. And it all started with a bus.
This ending didn't come without fault, because after blowing up the Earth, the question was brought up of what could happen next, and which could really bring us on the storyline.
Transit, regarded widely as Black Ops Zombies' worst map ever made. But why? How could a map with so many innovative features fall so flat? And why is Transit causing controversy again almost 12 years later? Today, we uncover all of this and break down Transit like you've never seen before. So grab your bus ticket as it's time to get going. Produced by Activision and developed by Treyarch with director Jimmy Zielinski, Transit was a nightmare from the beginning. Transit was released as the launch map to Black Ops 2 on November 12th of 2012 to the Xbox 360, PS3, and the Wii U. You start in a tiny bus stop with blue-eyed zombies and 2 doors, one requiring power, the other points. Grab the parts to the turbine, and voila, the power door is now open. You exit, and Transit is unveiled. Longtime Zombies vets open the door with a million questions. Who are these characters? What the heck is this map? Why are the zombies' eyes blue when they were orange in Black Ops 1? Why is there a bus driver honking at me? And what is that fog? Transit took place in release order, not story, right after Moon's massive finale in Black Ops 1. For those avid Zombies veterans, the story to this point is that Richtofen from the Ultimus crew is controlling the zombies after taking control from Samantha and swapping souls. We covered the story of the team that blew up the Earth first, and I want to acknowledge that Black Ops 2 is the aftermath of that explosion, with craters in the ground, blue-eyed zombies signaling Richtofen's control, and his narration instead of Samantha's.
Excuse me, just getting used to the ether. It is havoc on the pipes. Right.
This is what gave Black Ops 2 Zombies such a significant facelift from Black Ops 1 Zombies. Transit also came with a new cast called Victus for Black Ops 2. Samuel J. Stuhlinger, a cannibal of zombies who ate so many that now he is stuck with Richtofen talking to him. Abigail Misty Brierton is a farmer who makes a bunch of jokes that were somehow even outdated 12 years ago. Marlton Johnson, a surviving scientist from a post-nuclear explosion, and the voice of Robin from Teen Titans that I can't unhear every time he talks, and Russman, a former agent who was homeless at the time of meeting up with the crew. He's also the only one in this crew that's actually interesting. On top of the crew, there was a huge amount of new features to Transit that contribute to either making it one of your least favorite or favorite maps of all time. The bus driver, who would transport you around Black Ops 2's largest map, is a nice sweet robot if you're not smacking him in the back of the head.
Stay behind the yellow lines at all times, or you'll be sorry, asshole.
But there were problems with the bus itself too. Like, I can appreciate that it's a pretty solid pistol buy on the ceiling, but then there's zombies that can easily hit you through the bus's windows, there's clunkiness in sliding around the bus as it's moving around, and if you didn't have the ladder, you were stuck outside of one of the stops called the power station. You just couldn't get on the bus at all, and had to wait a full 2 minutes for the bus driver to move, only to miss the bus.
Bye, have a great time.
The driver would stop at each of Transit's 5 main locations: the bus depot, the diner, the farm, the power station, and the town, as well as its sub-locations that were somewhat secretly accessible by either getting off the bus midway through the ride or by skipping the bus entirely and running through the dense fog. These were the tunnel in the freeway, the shortcut to town through the fog between diner and farm, the cornfield where majority of both main Easter eggs took place, Noctur Untoten from World at War, the log cabin, and the bridge. The map was like a bunch of ideas on a board. They were spices of life that didn't really make sense together. All of these locations were playable as standalone maps and good in isolation, but once assembled together, none of them felt quite like they were the same. That being said, the variety of choice in Transit was unlike any map we'd seen before. If you let the bus driver beep away and drive, you were either stranded in a location for a while, or you could run through the dense fog and come face to face with the most frustrating enemy in all of Transit. Hell, maybe even all of Zombies, the Denizen. Ignore the miles of running for 1 second and focus on an enemy that never stopped spawning once you were in that fog, and whose whole purpose was due to console limitations, and you have your average New York City subway rat jumping on your face that you have to knife off 4 times just to get some breathing room. Now you could save a whopping 6,000 points to get the brand new sorta secret Galvanuckles to help this, and needed a part to build that you could either use for the top of the bus to get up on, or the hatch in the diner for the knuckles, once again offering more choices. It's a common thought that Denizens and the fog as a whole were added to slow down how much of a performance nightmare Transit would be. I can say that on PC, you can turn off the fog, and the map may be clearer without it, but it doesn't mean it's pretty. Apparently in cut content, there was a daytime version of Transit that would only be there if you didn't do the moon Easter egg, which clearly wasn't in the final product, as the map, again, would at least look a bit better if they ever fully planned that idea out. Again, Transit was a thought experiment ahead of its time, but was playing with the wrong deck, as its ideas are quite literally scattered around the map and the mode as a whole. Transit was tough and offered a complete new challenge to Zombies fans, especially in comparison to the relatively simple maps Black Ops 1 offered at launch. However, difficulty and challenge is often relished by fans and hardcore players. So why is it still so hated? Part of the reason is because Transit's difficulty just seemed artificial and annoying. Instead of challenging content that incentivized you to improve and practice, going down punished you harder than any map before, as you'd need to complete a full loop of the map to regain your perks again or revive a teammate, and not always in the order that you wanted. Transit was also a tough option to pick when wanting to play with friends, as you felt forced to be glued to your team at all times or risk certain death if you went down at a different location or stopped to your buddies. While bus trolling your friends was hilarious, many groups would opt for a more casual 4-man session on town than play Transit that required much more team coordination and planning to enjoy. Zombies have always been about chaos and slaying out with a cool pack-a-punched weapon against undead hordes, and players had learned to love this constant fighting. Transit, on the other hand, just seemed to have too much downtime. Whether it was walking through the fog, spamming melees to kill denizens, or waiting for the bus to come back around, or actually waiting on a bus while it's moving, too much of Transit felt like you were doing things that you didn't really want to do, but had to do to play the map with any success, which in a game that prided itself on choice was a very strange dynamic that players seemed to reject pretty fast. Some good ideas that made it into the final product were a grief mode, a 4v4 with the goal to block each other via not opening doors, blocking passageways, luring zombies towards them, knifing or shooting them. You could also just play bus depot, town, and farm on their own, but without the crew. Instead, a very non-talkative and non-engaging CDC or CIA. There was a couple of cut modes too, like Meat, not a nickname for Transit. This mode even had prototype lines by a Zesty or Richtofen as a placeholder, which are they're just so funny. You just have to have a listen.
Hey there, willing participants. Welcome to Meat. The rules are easy. When the meat drops, you finally reached manhood. I mean, grab it, throw it, don't get caught with it. Zombies will only attack you if your side has the meat. Don't die and you might just win. Feel free to kick it too, my pretties. Get ready to play Meat. Oh, you have my meat in your hands. Kinky.
This mode was essentially Halo's Oddball and scrapped all along with another mode called Race, where you just need to dodge zombies and race each other against the giant terrain that Transit provided. I like these in concept, but again, if daytime Transit couldn't make it to the final product, and if Transit without the fog does look, well, poo, I don't think more modes would have helped either. All of this is to say that Transit was a bag of ideas and choices that did too much, and that's what made it a bad map to most people. It's a shame too, because you will see that each zombies map in Black Ops 2 just gets strides better. As a standalone map, Transit also just feels off compared to what was shown before, and the learning curve that came with Transit was very off-putting to a lot of players, when there was much more simple and relatable maps available. It's like Treyarch saw that Pack-a-Punch and perks and running zombie trains was fun, but too easy for their player base, and they wanted to grow with the vets. This creates issues like Pack-a-Punch being behind bank vaults and needing power and buildables in this cutoff area to access. It was innovative and changed the fundamentals of Pack-a-Punch to some degree, but I think it was just more added steps for the sake of it. It also means that lava is in the way of trains that would be fun to run on the map, like for instance in Bus Depot and Town. It's by no mistake lava was in the way to prevent easy trains, but it makes running through town a slog, knowing I'm going to have my screen hazy and take damage. This in particular could have been prevented if PhD Flopper was on the map, but no, it's just not in the game until Origins, and that's so disappointing, as it would be essential and helpful for all of these maps. Then there's the avocado virus from Scooby-Doo zombie that was a staple to Transit. This zombie was freed by turning on the power and was a giant mystery to the lore side of the community. Sure, there was the Inferno zombies, Shriekers, George Romero zombie, and an astronaut, but those were almost thematic gags to the map they were on, while the Avogadro felt like something more grand, especially considering he has a full intro when you first free him. This zombie was, annoying, I guess. He didn't really cause issues the way that the astronaut or special zombies in Shang did, but he zapped you from far away and had a ton of HP. I think it would have been great if he powered on everything in the vicinity if power wasn't active, or even overcharged everything if it was, but he's just a special zombie that is used for the Easter egg more than anything. I do find it cool that he travels as a little electric ball if he's chasing the bus, while the rest of the zombies haul ass to get to you. In general, this zombie was another miss in Transit's ideas. Great presentation with no real substance. That's not to say that Transit didn't have any good ideas, and that all of its innovative ideas fell completely flat on their face. You could play a high round with Pack-a-Punch weapons and perks and never needed to activate the power in Transit and be completely fine. This wasn't possible in any other map that zombies had to this point, and whether you love it or not, it was an innovation. You could use a turbine to turn on perk machines that you needed from them and not need to worry about activating the entire map's power. You could use them to activate lamps where denizens would jump on you, then burrow into the ground, making a teleporter for you to access to other areas. And you could even use a turbine to activate Pack-a-Punch through the walls from the bank to the power room. There was also buildables, like gun traps and the jet gun, which was nice, but unfortunately you had no choice on where to build them, as each had an assigned spot for some reason, which annoyed people as it meant more marathons running through the fog. The jet gun as a whole was a major letdown though, since it took parts from the entire map and made this badass zombie shredding turbine, only for the turbine to break in about 3 zombies worth of damage. Wonder weapons are often the whole appeal of a map and can help make or break it, but Transit's wonder weapon offered very little to the average player. I know it's being remade and it has been remade in general, but it still sucked to see that such a great innovative idea was muddied down by these decisions. Black Ops 3 and later BO2 maps have Transit to thank for its much improved part system and buildables. The alternative modes, a buildable wonder weapon to eliminate box RNG, a whole banking system that allowed you to store not only a weapon in the refrigerator, but points in the bank for later playthroughs. Black Ops 2 also added rankings. There was a lot more like Galvanuckles and shortcuts, but I'll be sounding like a broken record if I keep talking about it. The point is that Transit had an incredible long list of new and changed features, with some that were universally loved and some that were universally hated, with others having mixed reviews that you might have forgotten. Now, a feature that finds itself in the middle of all this is perma-perks. This was a hidden system for only the first 3 Black Ops 2 maps, but essentially these perks or benefits were from systems and zombies that you may not have noticed. Like if you repair a bunch of windows, you will get steel barricades that zombies will take longer to rip off. If you're a completely new player to zombies, like the lowest rank, you can buy the Olympia and it will be a ray gun. There were some for getting double points, but only with your pistol by missing shots. There was better box RNG by picking up every drop the box gives you, which would give you better odds at getting something high-end like a wonder weapon or bombs like EMPs, which were a feature to Transit. There was a whole bunch of them that were very hit or miss, but they were a great idea, and they added depth that only a Zombies pro who was obsessed would froth at the mouth over. If this system has been expanded on, please let me know in the comments, because I really like the idea. But this choice of system, for better or worse, made the Easter eggs for our first 3 Black Ops 2 maps have some outliers and some world's first moments that not even the Wayback Machine can save. So let's journey back to 2012 and meet the post-moon craze of the Easter egg side of zombies.
Green priority zone. Everyone on board. Green priority zone.
On November 12th of 2012, the Easter egg for both Maxis and Richtofen was revealed to the world. Only Stuhlinger could hear Richtofen's extra dialogue lightly guiding him to his plan, but the entire team could hear Maxis. There were no gamer pictures like in Black Ops 1, as that era of Xbox 360 was slowly dying, and there wasn't avatar items either from what I could find for completing the Easter egg. But the story is what Zombies players were doing the Easter egg for anyways, and of course, there was still an achievement. Just like the choices of the map, the choices of which Easter egg you wanted to do started from the very beginning, with a guiding voice that may sound all too familiar to longtime Zombies vets.
Hi guys, Mr. Waffles here. I have just got done fresh out of my Green Run Northern Hemisphere Transit run. I was doing the Maxis Tower of Babel Easter egg, and this is my definitive guide tutorial help through for it to get you that achievement.
Once power was built and flicked on in this white science lab buried beneath Transit, a brand new zombie type was shown. Now, we did mention the Avogadro avocado virus from Scooby-Doo looking guy before, but he was very important for the Easter egg. The first step was getting the power on. Simple, right? Well, for the canon finale, Maxis would actually ask you to turn the power back off.
Excellent! You have freed it! But now you must turn off the power. An active power grid will disrupt all communications between us and make it impossible to accomplish the mission I have for you. Shut down the power.
So flick that power off and head over to the cornfield, with which the Group 935 logo can be made out if you were to float well above it. At least it sort of looks like it, right? Before you could even begin the next step, you would need to build the navcard table, the check in progress that you had completed either Maxis or Richtofen Easter eggs by finding the card at the bus depot buried in the trash, and the parts associated with it around the map. Then build the table and insert the card. This is a weird concept that didn't carry over to my knowledge into the other games, even if the true endings did. Once the table was built, Mr. Rafflewaffles and his team of Confusions, Acidic Blitz, and the guy who camps were on the next step. With enough power from placing 2 turbines under the pylon and next to the nav table, and only when the Avogadro decided to show up, you would need to EMP him, and that would be how the step ended. Now, the thought process behind this step was just that Maxis's dialogue kind of leads you to believe these sort of things. Power, no power, finding something associated makes sense for an electric zombie. But this step was also the longest and the most frustrating one, because sometimes the Avogadro just wouldn't work for you, and he wouldn't spawn for tens of rounds. Jimmy Zielinski loves some good old RNG in his Easter eggs. Once that step was done, Maxis would say this line.
You have done well, but we need yet more energy. This is but the tip of what needs 3 sides. Now, create the trichotomous system.
Now, all you had to do was place 2 turbines at different lampposts and have the other 2 under the tower, and Maxis was happy. I'll let Mr. Rafflewaffles take it away from here.
Well, this should.
Okay.
And then second one.
And then mine?
Yep, Jeff, do yours. Done?
Okay.
Tower of Babel. There, got it.
Oh!
I didn't.
Fuck yeah!
Whoa, what's that orange crap? Wow. Okay.
What the hell just happened? Oh shit! Oh shit! Look at the tower! Look at the tower! Look at the tower! Look at the tower!
When I asked Mr. Rafflewaffles on what it was like to solve this Easter egg and the thought process of the whole thing, this is what he had to say. If you can you take me back to 2012 and kind of explain the space, the Easter egg, the process of solving it all, just for people at home that maybe weren't there or people who were there and want to have a little bit of a hidden nostalgia?
Transit, I would say, was quite an atypical Easter egg solve. I think when talking about some of these older maps, you've really got to cast your mind back to what the community sort of shape and makeup was at the time. Whereas back during Transit and the BO2 maps, the hunt was still a big deal, but it was a big deal in a different way, and the community interacted with it in a different way, and streaming just wasn't even as big a thing. So in that context, obviously, picture the build up to Black Ops 2, picture the fact that we're still playing at this point on old gen as well. We're not playing on like PS5s or something, it's old gen, and early copies of Black Ops 2 start leaking via physical retailers, because people were buying discs back then. And so a handful of people were able to get access to Black Ops 2 early and play the game. There wasn't a limitation where you couldn't play any of the modes because it was always online, as there's going to be with Black Ops 6. None of that had really kicked in yet, and so you could just jump in and start playing if you were playing local. Before people were even allowed to stream it, and before they could play it publicly, before they could really discuss it online, like it was happening in some ways behind closed doors.
Did you think that there was more to the Easter egg once it got to the end? Because it just kind of abruptly ends out of nowhere.
I actually myself remember playing Transit, I think the day before Black Ops 2 technically came out, and I had solved up to, I believe, the very last step of one of the sides of the Easter egg, either on my own or through the help of whatever other folks I was talking to at the time, probably Liam Winter, he was probably in there, probably Star Wars Bob, folks like that as well. And I'd gotten to this step, and I'd messaged this dev to be like, is this the end of the Easter egg? Because if this is the end of the Easter egg, this doesn't make any sense. Like, this is a very strange ending, and I think it was basically the step where, if I recall correctly, you've got to throw an EMP at one of the lights or something like that. Again, my memory's a little hazy. But basically that seemed to be what we needed to do. There was something to do with the EMPs that was required, and it wasn't working. Like, it didn't do anything in this pre-launch version of the map, and so we were like, okay, this is the end. We've finished. But it just didn't seem like that could possibly be the ending. And so I hit up this dev and I said, what's the deal? And the dev was like, don't worry, just don't worry about it. Like, it's all good, which implied, I think, that it wasn't over and there was more to it. And that meant that once the map then came out, people had an idea of several of the steps, but they didn't have the kind of closing argument, if you will, to truly finish the Easter egg off. And then when I jumped in with my team to try and get that Easter egg solved, but we knew a bunch of the steps, so we charged forwards and then finally managed to solve what we needed to solve and get it done. And I really clearly remember being hit up maybe 30 minutes later, because I think I tweeted saying that I'd finished it, and I got hit up by Jarvano and I think Starburst, and they had also just finished, and they thought they were first, but then they were like, oh my god, Milo beat us by 30 minutes. Like, what an incredibly tight race. Because again, back then, like, I wasn't streaming, I was just recording locally, so they had much less of a way to know that I'd actually beaten it. And there's websites actually you can check, like old achievement tracking websites. That's something that people used to use back in the day to try and get an understanding of who was first. They weren't always super reliable because of various reasons, but I just remember that sort of conversation with them, and those guys were then first in later maps, like in Zetsubo, for example, they were first. So yeah, they kind of closed the loop and beat me at a later date, but yeah, we managed to charge through just in the nick of time on Transit.
Thank you, Milo, or Mr. Raff Waffles, and everybody in here. Make sure you go check out his channel. Of course, he's the GOAT of zombies, so yeah, you probably already subscribed. Now for Richtofen Inside, which is pretty different, but just as easy, maybe even easier if everyone gets lucky. For this one, teams wanted the power on, and the Avogadro wasn't necessary. Instead, the jet gun was. The Wayback Machine couldn't even help us find the information on who was the earliest video, but the only one that we could find was released by MC Sportshawk on day 2 of the map going out, and he covers the first 3 steps of Richtofen's Easter egg. It is the first footage I can find of anyone claiming to have beaten the Easter egg, but if you have correcting information, please let me know. Richtofen is a lot more clear than even Maxis on giving players information, but I found it funny that even more cut content reveals that Richtofen and Maxis were more like God of War Ragnarok NPCs, giving you hints and basically telling you how to do the Easter egg from start to finish. It's so funny, you just have to have a listen.
You have done well. Now activate the Spire's power. Are you circumcised? Oh, hold on. They said.
Richtofen would ask Sportshawk to build the jet gun and his team of Noah Craft, Mr. Zapazent, and Rad Rapture. I did mention that Nocturne Toten was a part of the map, but it's really only here for fan service and has a couple of parts needed for bigger things. There's really no point to having Nocturne Toten here until the story would clear it up later on. Leave me a comment if you know how that was cleared up. Either way, once you grabbed all the parts, including the bong for the jet gun, all you had to do was insert the nav card again, then shoot the jet gun at the table to the point that it blows up.
Ah, wunderschön! But now too much power is flowing into the obelisk. You must reduce the incoming power by a factor of 4.
Now, the final step. Yes, the final step. After we just blew up the Earth, this is the final step of the other major Easter egg in Transit. Transit was a lot of ideas and not a lot of execution. All you had to do was throw 4 EMP grenades at the lights, and as Mr. Raffle Waffles explained in his video on the Richtofen guide...
Now this is where things get really, really janky. I think janky is probably the right word to use.
Yeah, this part is janky, but with the permaperk of better box RNG and a lot of luck still on your side, EMPs could be yours. With that done and EMPs thrown, the lights turned blue and the same achievement was popped. Transit's Easter egg is probably the weakest Easter egg in all of Black Ops 2 Zombies, maybe even every single Zombies map since Easter eggs were introduced, which is pretty fitting for the most hated map in the series. Choice isn't always great, and while I think this might be the weakest Easter egg in the entire series, it didn't stop people from thinking that there was more. I mean, if we go off of Moon, there was multiple achievements and added steps, so I think it's valid for players to think that Transit offered more like these forum posts that spoke on it.
This is my first post, and I wanted to share with you a theory of the continuation of the Tower of Babel Easter egg my friend told me. This hasn't been tested, but if someone could try it would be amazing. Have 3 players, all with the nav card, stand under the table by the tower. Have 1 player with EMPs at the bus. At the same time, the other 3 players insert the nav card into the table. The person on the bus must use a turbine to activate the bus, which in theory would take you to a secret location. This is just a theory my friend came up with, so I don't want anyone bashing me.
I'm not bashing you, Antimatter 1997. As a fellow 1997, we can't be doing all this. Then there's this video by Mega Man 2DK that talks about connecting the lamps.
I was just thinking maybe you could get all of the lampposts to send orbs or these lasers to the top of the Tower of Babel, and maybe if somebody's done that, can they let me know exactly what happens? And if not, maybe that's a theory somebody could test out. Overall,
Transit's Easter egg, while bad, would be built upon in future maps. With Transit having so many issues that seem fixable given modern hardware, you would think that Treyarch would want to try again. This seems honorable, right? Well, aside from some hints of Transit's return, like Black Ops 4's Blackout having the Transit Diner and some assets around, Treyarch hasn't given the community a Transit. So, when mod tools are available for Black Ops 3, the best thing you could ask for is the community to take it into their own hands. While there has been a Transit reimagining based on what was in the original concept pictures of the map, and some ideas discussed in interviews with Jason Blundell and Jimmy Zielinski, this map isn't close to done to my knowledge, but doesn't have any major controversy. In comes Transit Remastered, with so much controversy that there has been whole videos made deep diving the creator of the map and the stories with him. The creator of the Water Park Zombies map, considered the largest Zombies custom map project ever, named Danny, had taken some time to get Water Park out. This was fine, but considering it's frowned upon to charge people for a mod in the Zombies community, and Danny had a Patreon that had high-paying tiers, it was not seen as a good thing. But passable since the map was just fantastic. In comes Green Run Productions, who claims not to be Danny, but it was pretty obvious in the similarities of having a Patreon and the wording of their messages that it was at least him or someone closely associated to him. Transit had tens to hundreds of Patreon tiers for thousands of dollars, and no real push to get this thing out. It's frowned upon to charge for mods, but even then, it's okay if it's a Patreon, it has a real timetable, and some reasonable prices. But this was too much, like $10,000 plus too much at times. Danny claimed to not be Green Run Productions again, then got cocky to people in the Zombies community and started acting out. His controversy was discussed by many YouTubers, bringing him to abruptly delete Water Park Zombies. The community had to restore it, and now he's being called a fraud. The Transit drama goes a lot further than this, and was a lot more serious and deeper than I thought. If you want to hear the full story, let me know in the comments below. The zombies community back in 2012 was at a point of taking different directions. Were you a serious high round grinder? Were you an Easter egg completionist? Were you enjoying the massive scale of transit at the sacrifice of the interconnected single location? Was the two endings worth your time? Was there more? We'll leave it to Transit Reimagined and maybe the Remastered to one day answer those questions, hopefully drama free. It's clear that the zombies community and Treyarch weren't done. Hell, they were just getting the ignition started. So after they journeyed from Transit, they took the Tower of Blue or Orange and flew all the way to Die Rise.
Incredibly tight corridors, the constant peril of a fatal fall, and mind-blowing niche Easter egg steps sound like a custom zombies map from hell, let alone an official Treyarch release. Yet, somehow, it really is the latter. Die Rise really felt like a map made only to punish the community, and the story of it still blows my mind over a decade later.
Die Rise was the map to split the zombies community in more ways than one. But why? How can a map with so much character and innovation end up becoming one of the most hated among a lot of zombies fans? And how can a map that is so hated by zombies players be so beloved by others? And finally, how did an Easter egg that followed the miserably simple transit Easter egg become so room-splitting itself? So welcome to Zombies' most room-splitting map, the crumbling, vertically challenged Die Rise. Launching in early 2013, Die Rise was received decently well among veterans, critics, and other zombies fans. Looking back at the reviews from the Revolution DLC that brought Die Rise to our screens, we can see a lot of flowers to new and innovative challenges that it provided. To quote one reviewer, Die Rise is not for the noob player or casual zombie hunter. If you're interested in purchasing this DLC, understand that you'll need a team, and you'll need to have a lot of patience to get used to the workings of these rooms and enemies. That being said, for those of us who have lost months of our lives to the intoxicating gameplay begging for a more intensive challenge, this is it. The rip-roaring and rocking sentiment of Die Rise was that it was not new player friendly, but it was the challenge veterans of zombies wanted, following the relatively simple options that Black Ops 2's launch offered.
What they were able to do to make this map enjoyable, and what I think will make people stick around and play it for a very long time, is that, you know, if you guys haven't noticed, what they're doing is they're raising the bar. They're making the maps more difficult each time because they're trying to, you know, raise the skill level, get us better at the game, give us a challenge, you know, instead of just running circles all day. They're trying to make it more difficult and, you know, keep us around and just like try to make us better at the game.
Die Rise offered a vertical challenge unlike any other ever seen before in zombies. Players could no longer mindlessly battle the undead hordes, as constant thought was required to stop perilous falls from hundreds of feet to instant death. One wrong turn or missed jump could quickly bring instant conclusion to hours of progress. Areas such as the first jump to the mattresses, down the slide by the ramen shop, and down the elevator shaft were notorious for deaths, and would make the players' hearts race every time they had to time their jump. Reviews from the time frequently mentioned the struggles new players would go through on Die Rise, but playing the map back then definitely made even vets struggle to make high rounds work, and the strategies of running zombie trains in open spaces and sticking all together in one corner weren't really possible, in the same way that we had seen on other Black Ops 2 maps like Town, Bus Depot, or Farm, which offered larger spaces to run laps with zombies. One moment you were in the spawn, looking over at the beautifully chaotic view of a crumbling Shanghai, China after the events of Black Ops 1 and the Moon Easter egg. The next moment you were frantically navigating through claustrophobic rooms with a red screen, praying for the zombie's next swipe to miss. You would open the spawn door and be met with a wall a few feet after. Then, since the power switch isn't on yet, and it's across the map, you have yourself a whole journey to get there. Would you go down the escalator and take the risk of a small jump that landed a floor below at the cost that if you missed, you were fully dead until the next round if your team survived? If you did make it down, going further down meant a larger, riskier jump onto mattresses that if you missed, well, you weren't dead, but you were down. Even if you decided to exit down the smaller, safer jump and find your way to the mystery box side with a claustrophobic hallway past the ramen shop where zombies climb from the sides of the building, smacking your legs, you had to pray that a slide down to the box didn't kill you. Collision damage in Black Ops 2 was brutal. Big jumps, small jumps, slides, shimmies, they were all risky, but didn't offer reward like the series had seen before, like Jug on the map Moon for risking staying in spawn for the reward of Jug on round 1. Even if you made it all the way to the power switch, the reward was more challenging, as the areas of that building were full of tables and boxes and cages and really just blocked you from having any comfortable navigation. On top of that, the hardest thing about this map was the elevators. Imagine navigating this wipeout obstacle course of broken buildings, spending thousands of hard-earned zombie points on the door to get you here. You finally flick that power switch on, and you have to wait for perk machines to come down to you that were random on every single game. So if Jug was in one spot one game, it probably wouldn't be in the same spot next. On top of this, you had to take these elevators up and wait, and wait, and wait. All the while, zombies got the luxury of feasting on you in a Minecraft block-sized square. The kicker on all of this is that if you didn't get off the elevators in time... Nowadays, we're used to seeing some pretty crazy zombie maps, but this was 2013. Die Rise's architecture introduced a new difficulty factor unlike any we had seen in zombies before, with players having to actively battle the map alongside the zombies. Combine this with tight corridors, elevators for transport, randomly arranged perk machines, and confusing layout, and pretty quick, you can see why Die Rise caused so many problems for zombies fans back in 2013. What would have helped here was a perk that negated fall damage completely, one that the mode became known for in all of Black Ops 1, and was missing from the first map of Black Ops 2. A perfect fit, and I'm happy to say that it was on this map, PhD Flopper. With a trip down to the plunging elevator of doom on the other side of spawn, this could be yours. Well, only if you plan on playing the soon-to-be-released Die Rise remaster, that is. Yeah, PhD Flopper was just straight up teased in a hallway while you fell down the elevator shaft at spawn. In a sick, twisted game, Treyarch wanted to tease its player base, and they would do that for the next map in the game too, so don't worry, they'll be laughing at us again. Flopper would have taken all of the stress out of the jumps, and the map as a whole would have been a lot more new player and casual friendly. But the Treyarch of then didn't want to appeal to that audience. They wanted to test the player base to its extreme. The Treyarch trolling didn't stop there either. Die Rise offered an incredibly funky new wonder weapon in the Sliquifier that players were desperate to try. However, on a map that required precision of movement and accuracy when navigating the treacherous falls, the wonder weapon would only offer further difficulty, allowing players and zombies to slip and slide around the place, further endangering the possibility of deathly, game-ending falls. Thankfully, there was a saving grace navigating building to building, and it was named Trample Steam. The brand new buildable to Die Rise made shortcuts exist, but only if the players found them. This was more like a nice sigh of relief than a cookie for exploring the new creation. For example, the most known Trample Steam spot was from where you built it to the top of the radio tower. The most risky spots were yet again from the spawn building to the power building. It was like Treyarch testing its veterans to look for places to use the Trample Steams, and using the mattresses as clues. But it was also nice that Die Rise had an evolution of its part system in general. No longer was there a bunch of scattered ideas like in Transit with different wacky doodads and thingamajig-like machines, and traps, and jet guns, with parts from all over and only using specific tables. Instead, the parts for the Trample Steam were really close by, even if it meant a whole trip around the map for solo players to get back to the top floor again to grab the parts until the power was on. Over time, frustration started to weigh, and you will find many videos and reviews of Die Rise that have a newer perspective, one that hates this map for the challenge reasons. There was no training, there were scary jumps, there was an over-reliance on the elevator system, then there was Black Ops 2 jank. Wait, I actually agree with this one. This game can be jank. The modern day take is that Die Rise is not good. But if you look at the intentions of the map at the time, and the player base that was playing the game back then you would see that it was innovative and completed the task it set out to complete. It's even often admired for its Easter egg, since it was a return to larger scale quests. And for the rest of this video, I would like to talk about how its fantastic quest was solved by some of the biggest brains in the community at that time, because just like the clues laid out with the mattresses for the trample steam, there were clues all around Die Rise. From golden circles on elevators and symbols in rooms and little mahjong tiles, Treyarch was bringing back the Easter egg sauce too. So let's continue on. From a room-splitting map to a room-splitting choice on the Easter egg quest with either Dr. Ludwig Maxis or Dr. Edward Richthofen's high-maintenance Easter egg. Just like that, the Easter egg began for those who dared to step in. This map navigated them to see that there was more to it than normal. The first step to this Easter egg was clued in pretty clearly to the players. You might have been new to Die Rise and noticed that a perk machine was tied to waiting on an elevator. So you waited, and then once you slurped that perk down, you rode the elevator up through the shaft, up to another floor on the map. Treyarch knew the players would need to ride elevators up, so they put these golden symbols on 4 of them. If it wasn't clear before to the players, Treyarch also included radio comms from an old German man that kept cheering you on for standing on those symbols. Transit's Easter egg beginnings were obscured behind miles of running through cornfields and thick fog, whereas Die Rise brought the start of the Easter egg right to the forefront of the map. Die Rise wasn't shy with its Easter egg, and just like the elevator shaft symbols being fairly obvious to spot, you would find clues all over the map to future steps. As we delve into the world's first teams discovering them, there will be clues that teams found out of order, clues from radios that didn't make sense to them, and you will see through their eyes a past back into 2013's landscape of zombies. Easter eggs were not the mass-reported and cutscene dependent game over screen winning stories that we have today. In the eyes of Black Ops 2 players after Transit, they were nothing more than an achievement and part 2 of this ongoing Victus storyline. This Easter egg would take 3 whole days to fully solve both sides, which is very intriguing given that these steps by today's standards aren't the most obscure. The very first Easter egg quest step was dropped by a YouTuber named Chaos, who said,
but I'll zoom in on it. If you go look on your Xbox, you can see it really crystal clear. It is him, Treyarch, Black Ops 2 Zombies, paying homage to the YouTube sensation that did Gangnam Style with over 1 billion views. Pretty cool. Thought it was a really cool Easter egg. Wanted to share it with you guys.
It's a panda. Man, 2013 YouTube. The very first real guide was uploaded by our friend from the Moon Easter egg video, Nick That Gaming Show, not using leaked information to show us that the nav card table is much more user-friendly this time, taking advantage of the space on the roof. And it's easy to see that Treyarch learned the lesson from Transit. No longer are you running marathons to get even something as simple as the nav card. It's all on the roof outside of the card itself. And while we're in this room, we should discuss this silly perk and why it's living proof that not all innovation is good. Who's Who was a perk that if you died, you came back as a ghost that could revive yourself and bring you back with all of your stuff. Easy, right? Well, the thing is, you were a doppelganger, not a ghost. So the zombies could still get you, and instead of maybe having that pack-a-punch loadout, you had a starter pistol to make a run to your body to revive yourself. So high rounds made this perk a risk to place in the loadout. Remember, zombies had a cap of 4 perks to run on each map. So if you somehow found a way to evade the zombies, but didn't make it back to your body in time, you just were left with the starter pistol. Here's the biggest kicker. If the original player as well as the clone were down simultaneously, then their teammates would need to revive both in order to revive the down player. It was the embodiment of Treyarch trying to push challenge on Die Rise. A perk that let you earn a revive to restore your perks, but only if you could navigate the map with the bare essentials. But I believe this one was too niche to be cared about by many zombies players. since waiting it out till next round was almost always more viable. And it's not like Who's Who let you revive yourself if you fell off the map anyways.
So that was a fucking lie.
So the next step, which was hinted by Maxis and Richtofen, was discovered by Sam DeMan, who talks about building the nav card and noticing symbols. Sam posted a video outlining what we had all seen before. Then we have this very 2013 YouTube video that I had to do some fun remixing on, so I didn't get a yellow mark on the video that outlines these mahjong tiles on the map. Now in the video, this is happening.
It's called a bamboo piece, and it's number 4.
A simple search will find that mahjong tiles are a part of games similar to card games in Asia, originating in China, but it's not explicitly clear from searches. The tiles on Die Rise represent directions and numbers. If we know anything about Easter eggs and zombies, then these will have much larger implications. So we have mahjong tiles now, symbols on elevators, symbols on the ground, and a nav card station built. So a whole day later, Sam DeMan comes in with the first step completed.
This is the next part of the Easter egg. For this, you need to find the 4 symbols on the elevators. Get your 4 teammates ready to go on them at the same time. You have to time it correctly to make it so everyone can get on it at the same time. And once you do, the symbol should glow and there should be a message. And then that's it, guys. That's it for this part of the Easter egg. Subscribe for the next part. Peace.
Now this was fairly obvious by today's standards, but back then, well, I don't know why this took a whole day to finish, but Easter eggs were still in infancy. Sam discovered that by having everyone time their jumps on the elevators to land on the ones with the symbol at the same time, it would light up, and the step was done, as they all stayed lit up. Now just like the players of then, you may wonder what's next, and just like in Transit, would there be a bunch of branching paths? Was I doing a Maxis or a Richtofen step? Die Rise worked a bit different. Not only was the Easter egg better spread through the whole map, giving reasons to be in most of the rooms, but the Easter egg was the same until one of the steps where it would then branch out. Those symbols outside of the elevators were the key to the next step, but instead of standing on them all at once, Sam DeMan discovered that there was a coordinated order to them. The order changes per game, but the locations again split up the team to discover the map. The first one was right next to the radio tower over by Semtex's. The next was in the spawn by the M14 wall buy. The next being in the ramen shop over near a mahjong tile location, leading into letting players discover even more clues. This was also a slide down away from the brand new AN-94 wall buy, one of the best rifles in all of zombies, with a mystery box that was flipped upside down in the room in case you were wondering if this map focused on verticality. You might want to be careful taking that slide down too, as having too many frames or bumping into a teammate would just kill you, as you would miss the jump. Oh, Die Rise, my beloved. Once Sam's team got the correct order of symbols by chatting it up, Richtofen and Maxis would come talk again. This was where the community was stumped for a bit, until Spiderbite from NGT Zombies found a Maxis audio hint that a sniper was needed for this next step. In this, Spiderbite correctly theorizes that a sniper was needed, and going off of the last audio from the previous step, I think he's correct. Actually, I know he's correct. We're in the future. Then, both Nick That Gaming Show and NGT Zombies both post at almost the exact same time that they have solved the next step. But NGT, from what I was able to tell, had basically already solved this the day before, and their reaction to solving this told me that they had no knowledge of others doing it. So have a listen.
Look to the dragon. The energy flows.
One more must be found.
Yes! Yes! What did I tell you? Oh my god, I can't believe it. I was right. We were right. I mean, I'm not taking all the credit here. I mean, it's a community thing, but damn, when I posted those videos earlier and the orbs going to the lion's paws, oh yeah.
This is where the Easter egg splits. No longer is this a Maxis and a Richtofen step, but a Maxis or Richtofen step. Starting with those lion statues that will look very familiar to World at War veterans, as these same statues were in our video on World at War Secrets and the ray gun Easter egg. Why they are here is purely fan service, just like them being shown on golden symbols for a future step. But a choice lied in your hands for this next one. Would you take the lion statue orbs and join Team Maxis, or would you create the wonder weapon of the map? For Richtofen Step, you needed the Sliquifier, a controversial weapon to say the least. This weapon was built from parts found around the power area. Once assembling those parts from power, the connecting gross kitchen, the laundry, and the bathroom areas, and more, you built a weapon that essentially shot soap on the ground. This was very powerful when it first launched, so powerful that Treyarch was even afraid to let you pack-a-punch it, knowing that it would add too much power and break the game. That, or launch your teammates back to the moon.
When I grow up, I want to go to the moon!
Why wait?
The saving grace that the Sliquifier was for a lot of teams wouldn't be able to stay in Treyarch's vision of the challenging map, so they ended up nerfing it to be less effective at straight up killing zombies. Then they snuck in a small Easter egg that by shooting this sign outside of the map with a full mag of Sliquifier ammo, it would upgrade the damage closer to its original form. That wasn't the only controversial part of this gun. There was more trolling your friends than anything productive here, like putting the Sliquifier on the ground before the jumps to the mattresses or the slide. The elevator shaft too. It was necessary for the Easter egg, however, to have this weapon. As for Richtofen, you needed to lube up those balls.
Yeah, boy.
Spiderbite said in his video on the step that Richtofen instructs you to grab the Sliquifier when you pick up a ball, letting you know that you're doing his side wrong by picking it up.
Maxis will no longer be able to get his filthy hands on those balls of those who now the real fun can begin.
The split in Easter eggs do have different steps, but just like Transit, they're in and around similar concepts. Like for Richtofen and Maxis, both of them had you going back to those golden circles around the map, just at different times. We will stay on Richtofen's path for now, and visually I'm doing this so you know who we're following in the Easter egg. For this next one, Nick That Gaming Show discovered the next few steps first. With very tight precision, you had to use those beautiful trample steams on the zombie symbols, and point them at the radio tower. This immediately meant that doing this Easter egg solo was not really an option, as you could only get one trample steam per person, and each person needed to use one on a spot. Those spots were near the M14, near the Claymores and Spawn, near the Semtex, and just outside of the ramp to the roof. If you placed them in the correct position, they could not be picked back up. Just don't make the mistake I did when recording this footage for the video and place them all down at the same time, as it bugs the game out completely. Each time you place one in the correct spot, Richtofen lets you know you're doing great at being a little pawn in his game.
I'm so excited! I'm so pleased. Keep going.
Once all four were down, the players back then just needed to fling zombies or themselves, and this step was done. Maxis, on the other hand, was a different story. The zombies community found that if you picked up the balls instead, that Maxis gave a vague hint on where to move next.
Reincarnation is key.
NGT Zombies Spiderbite found that you just needed to kill zombies in the Buddha room. Why here? I guess Buddha is about peace and zombies are about chaos, so we're cleansing the room? I have no idea. But this room is significant for other reasons too, as this would not only be used for the next step, but for the Easter egg song by activating a teddy bear here, and being the main place to trample steam those karate crawlers away. If you never got hit by them, they would even drop a free random perk. This room was the easiest for it, and a great high round area, since you could ideally train zombies here if the roof was too much trouble. One of the few areas great for high rounds in a map that was otherwise incredibly claustrophobic and difficult to train on. This next step for Maxis was extremely confusing, and if you didn't have the voice lines from Maxis on this one giving you a hint, then I think Die Rise might have taken months to complete. Even with the great amount of visual clues, this Easter egg step was needlessly implemented here. This was the only hint!
The regenerative power of that device is vital to our success. We need the ballistic knives. We need to revive somebody. So that goes along with the reincarnation quote. So we're just not sure, again, exactly what step to use this on. But we know that it is required and will definitely get us progress to Maxis. We're going to continue on.
So, if you happen to want to pack a punch ballistic knives, and if you heard Maxis talking over all of the zombies screaming, you would have heard that Maxis wanted you to use the ballistic knives in some way. All you had to do for this Easter egg step was get pack-a-punch ballistic knives and shoot them in the Buddha room. This was found purely by trial and error, and more than likely an accident. For more gluttony of punishment, this step only worked if the player was holding the Kraus Refibrillator, the pack knives, and it didn't work if you bought the Galvanuckles or the Bowie knife, and it didn't work if you already bled out before. So that's nice. Maxis would then have you doing a step similar to Richtofen's that we discussed. Put trample steams down, but in the lion statue spots and not the zombie spots. There were 2 that were closer to spawn and 2 near the radio tower, very close by to Richtofen's symbols. I haven't mentioned this yet, but each time you completed a step for Richtofen or Maxis, the dragons would each spark in different colors to signify your progress. One of the dragons had blue fireworks and the other had orange fireworks. Another nice touch Treyarch left in for new and returning players to feel this map out and see progress in real time. On February 1st of 2013, DJ Tekken X published a video outlining the steps and more to the Easter egg. For Maxis, once the trample steams were set and you placed the balls on them, DJ discovered that this would happen.
Yes, the orientation is optimal. Continue at speed.
I tried to be patient, but you ruined everything!
We are near our goal.
Do I need to speak slower so you can follow simple instructions?
You must keep going. The spire awaits energy. You have taken an important step. The spire has been activated. Now, you must locate and activate the others if we are to prevent Richtofen's plans from reaching fruition.
This Easter egg already has way more substance in its puzzles and way more visual progress and reward than Transit ever did. Now, the final step was a puzzle in and of itself, as DJ Tekken would speak on.
You will have to obtain the Galvanuckles in the shaft on your way to the Buddha room. Then you will go near the spire and you will have to correctly punch each corner of the spire. Now, how do you know which corner to punch? It's all in the Mahjong tiles. I cannot tell you how to do it perfectly because it will be different for everybody, every game.
So yes, Mahjong tiles were needed here, and they had a ton of spots all over the map that I could go into fine detail about, but the main message is really the same. You had directions, north, south, east, west, then numbers, 1 through 4. The color would determine a lot, however, and every game was different, so Tekken had different ones from what everyone else had. The directional tiles and the color of them indicated the order in which that particular post should be punched. Each compass point and bamboo tile was colored, and the same colored ones are correlated. The colors are red, blue, green, and black. So for example, if the player found a green north tile and green with 3 bamboos, the north side of the tower was hit third in the order. This step led players all over the map and utilized each of the rooms like the kitchen, the bathrooms, the laundry rooms, the broken buildings. It was one awesome scavenger hunt if you ask me, and required team coordination and notepads or notebooks like in the old days. Players also noticed that the tower was either glowing orange or blue because both mad scientists were up to the same point. Richtofen had less steps in this one. And yes, both Easter eggs did end the same, which is pretty lame, but I digress. If you shot, meleeed, grenade, etc., nothing would happen. But if you banked enough points in the banking system, you could buy Galvanuckles for 6,000 points. The banking system was one of the more controversial decisions for Black Ops 2, because it really just trivialized the mode. The idea was that for high rounds, a teammate may lose out on points and need them for getting back in, as zombies was really tough if you died late, so sharing points was helpful, but most of the time it just meant someone in your team had thousands of points by round 1. It did make steps for Easter eggs more bearable, like hitting the box for those ballistic knives and getting the Galvanuckles from a wall buy. Once DJ Tekken X and his team of Big Black John, Silver is Pro, and Mr. Siegeling put it all together, they completed the Easter egg once and for all, claiming world's first on February 1st of 2013.
I want to give a few thanks to a couple people that really helped us through it. Spiderbite with his videos on the Mahjong tiles were very, very helpful. Also want to pay tribute to Liam Winter that gave us the idea for the traps on the lion tiles. And of course, I can never forget my team, Big Black John, Silver is Pro, and Mr. Seagull.
It's always good when winners shout out the people that helped along the way. It shows that it was all a team effort. On the Richtofen side, Prestige is Key posted a video of the world's first with his team of Nick That Gaming Show, Telixian, and Liam Winter, who claimed world's first a day before on January 31st of 2013.
Oh yeah, yes! Woo! Yes!
All in all, this Easter egg, while room splitting in its decisions and what you were able to do, was a great evolution of Easter eggs in Black Ops 2, and it showed that Victus did have more substance than what Transit was presenting in its Easter eggs. With that being said, and Die-Rise's perception to a lot of the community, there has been a push for a modern day remaster. With all the time that had passed and the love or hate relationship that Die-Rise was to the fanbase, the Zombies community took it into their own hands and made a Die-Rise remastered on Black Ops 3. Now it's not done and exists on Destiny Dobby's Patreon. Wait, Destiny? But it does offer a much more modernized take on Die-Rise, like multiple parts being able to be picked up and spacing that fits Black Ops 3 more so than 2. It's still not the most beginner-friendly map, but the creator thankfully does have a quest for PhD Flopper, and my god does it make a difference here. And there's even a nice Easter egg to get to the floor that it's on. Die-Rise remains a study on a map that is perfectly illustrated by its Easter egg. It's not easy, but for those who seek a challenge out and find something to appreciate in that challenge, there is gold buried beneath the surface. The next map in the series would go to a getaway island, first shot at a zombies map, in Mob of the Dead. I will see you there.
We all know the saying, third time lucky. And so after two incredibly polarizing maps in Transit and Die-Rise, it really was only a matter of time before Treyarch would finally nail the head that has been calling them to hit it in Black Ops 2. And while the quality of this next map is known by millions, the extent of the controversy that lurks below the surface has remained unknown to many for years.
Zombies has seen many locations that ride the line between realism, absurdity, and fantasy. But one map does this the best of all: Mob of the Dead. Almost 2 million people visit Alcatraz prison every year, including the Golden Gate Bridge, also present in this map. We're talking well over 20 million visitors. And this heavy dose of real-world history injected into the fantasy of Treyarch Zombies meant that COD fans were in for a real treat. But with every great story comes some form of controversy, and how befitting of a map based on shady criminals to have a shady history. Transit and Die-Rise preceded Mob of the Dead in Black Ops 2, and weren't the most new player-friendly maps. New Zombies director Jason Blundell recognized that and vowed for Mob of the Dead to be very different. This idea is backed up in full force during an interview with Jason Blundell from the now archived Call of Duty Elite website. When asked, with Mob of the Dead, you lay out the plan right at the start. Why the added transparency? Blundell said, "A lot of the prior Zombies maps have very deep Easter eggs, and they're fantastic, and that's a part of the community that we absolutely want to cater to. When it came to Mob of the Dead, we talked about it. Let's just lay it out, almost like an onion. The guy who just sits down and knows nothing about it. Give him a purpose." Layering the onion is exactly what Blundell and the new Zombies team absolutely nailed at Treyarch. From the moment you were dropped into the prison, you were instantly tasked with objectives and presented with new mechanics. If you're a newer Zombies player watching this video, then the Afterlife mechanic introduced in Mob of the Dead may look like the Aether Shroud field upgrade. This was how you brought the cast of prisoners, Billy Handsome, Michael Finn O'Leary, Salvatore Sal De Luca, and Albert the Weasel Arlington to life. The choice to bring famous actors who are known for gangster films to Alcatraz was an excellent one, not only for the known history of Al Capone and other gangsters on the island's relevancy, but also for breaking up the monotony of one crew. The Victus crew wasn't everyone's favorite, and this was a nice way to give them a break, adding a fresh feel for vets and new players alike. The fresh feel extended well past the cast, however. Afterlife changed the way players powered on perk machines and opened some doors throughout the prison. It also helped Blundell's goal of making Mob of the Dead more new player friendly, allowing players to revive themselves once down. Once you begin to peel back the layers, you realize Afterlife ventured past just unlocking doors and perks, however, playing a vital role inside of Easter eggs, and therefore controversy that we will cover later. Afterlife was clearly the main mechanic of the map, but it was far from the only new feature, and wasn't the only reason players fell in love with the map. Mob of the Dead just felt fresh compared to all of the other maps in Black Ops 2 at the time. The UI was exclusive to this map, the box design was exclusive to the map, and featured period-relevant weapons, like the Uzi, AK, Death Machine, and Tommy Gun. The map also came with a fantastic brand new perk called Electric Cherry, which perfectly tied into the theme of the electric chair and the afterlife, as well as helping the map be even more new player friendly with its aid to survivability. One thing that helps to tie this map and its layers together so beautifully, both for veteran and new players, is that thematically the map is just so simple and straightforward. You're a prisoner trying to escape the prison. Prison escapes are a tale as old as time, and the fact that escaping the prison is a crucial part of the Easter egg simplifies things in a way that wasn't really present in other Black Ops 2 maps, and perfectly encapsulates Blundell's vision to want to make the map more new player friendly. In that same interview with Blundell, he was asked, was there anything throughout the production of Mob of the Dead that really stood out for you? And the answer is as perfect as it really gets. There was so much, but I'll say this, and it goes with being at Treyarch because we believe in it so much, but the team just rocked it. So I think that in my experience, it's as close to a smooth landing as possible. The creativity flourished. We hit the deadlines for the release date, and it all worked out perfectly. As perfect as you may have hoped for, Mr. Blundell, unfortunately, your team wasn't in charge of their very own Weasel. And the Easter egg landing was about as smooth as the plane landing on the Golden Gate Bridge. While there wasn't a Treyarch-sanctioned race for World's First, there were, and still is, millions of eyes on channels that can crack the puzzle for World's First. And while I believe Mob of the Dead to be an almost perfect map, I will say that unfortunately, it's becoming way too common for me to talk about some form of foul play in COD Zombies Easter egg hunts. But history isn't always perfect. Treyarch's goal was to make an Easter egg that was impactful, separate from the main story of Victus, and enticing for even new players to sink into. As with most maps, reaching Pack-a-Punch kicks off the Easter egg. In Mob of the Dead, this was a pretty large quest, requiring players to collect 5 parts before building a plane to fly to one of the world's most iconic bridges, the Golden Gate Bridge. Before taking off, if you had a sniper rifle, you could even scope in for some extra benefits. You know I had to do it to you. And yes, this was the real jump scare on the map. I did not edit this in. Once on the bridge, you were greeted by an influx of wardens, and the only way off the bridge was to execute yourself, a feature that raises more questions than answers at first, but all would become clear by the end of the Easter egg. The map's wonder weapon could be obtained via box RNG or a side Easter egg. Noah J discovered the existence of 5 skulls that could only be seen in Afterlife and retrieved by the good boy Tomahawk, the Hell's Retriever. Once the Blundergat was in hand, it could be upgraded via the Acid Gat kit, making it the very first wonder weapon upgradable by a means other than Pack-a-Punch. With the Acid Gat in hand, the next step was acquiring the spoon. Noah J was the first to post about the Shawshank Redemption Easter egg step. By using the Hell's Retriever, Noah pulled off the poster and the cell blocks. But NGT Zombies Spiderbite discovered that by simply shocking the spoon on the ground between the cells and the pipes, a sound played that was reminiscent of the old mystery box teddy bears. Later that day, Spiderbite posts a video giving credit to a comment saying to check the cafeteria with the Hell's Retriever. So by throwing the Hell's Retriever at the spoon on the wall in the kitchen, this happens.
Your number is up.
At this point, you may think that the hunt was on, and progress was to be made, but somehow, the Easter egg had been completed by this point. This is a major turning point of the race, and where the controversy and mystery really began. But I feel like it's important to at least bring you to the end of the Easter egg, so you can see where and why foul play was at hand. After the news of World's First already being done, people wanted an explanation on how to finish the achievement Pop the Weasel, and Noah J was the first to give them that, and the only one I will give credit for a legit World's First. Noah explained that the next steps required players to get back to the Golden Gate Bridge 3 times before the Easter egg let them continue. This would mess with the dials in the staircase room, and if I had to guess the significance, I would say that 4 inmates going to the Golden Gate Bridge and using the electric chair might mean something about their spirits being trapped one by one to the prison. This is evident in the next step as the dials were tweaking out. The numbers being flipped around were anagrams for each inmate's prison cell number: 101, 872, 386, and 481. I think you may understand where the story goes from here, and it's a shame that foul play was at hand for World's First, as the next step was probably one of the coolest of all time in zombies. It was the audio tour from the real-life Alcatraz, complement with the same headphones when you listen to the real prison tour, and its narration is amazing. Having grown up in the Bay Area, I visited Alcatraz many times, and the visual comparisons to Mob of the Dead are pretty mind-blowing, and having a zombies map set in a very real and historic location creates an additional layer of depth that some of the more fantasy maps can't compete with. In real life, we don't know if the prisoners of the 1962 Alcatraz escape really made it or not, and the Easter egg also plays nods to this in its grand finale. The final step for the Easter egg was equally as great as the audio tour. Bring your afterlife selves to your real life selves sitting in the electric chair at the Golden Gate Bridge, and fight each other with either the Weasel winning and killing everyone, breaking the cycle and ending the game, or you killing the Weasel to end the game and keep the Alcatraz cycle remaining whole. This was the first time you could game over your game without going down, and I think that alone is so damn cool. That was unfortunately bounded by the duality that it was cheated for the World's First clear. While Mob of the Dead wasn't the most complex Easter egg we had ever seen, the speed that it was solved was questionable and shady at best. This opened up a whole rabbit hole of digging for me, and I was able to trace back a route of what remains through internet archives, and posts that are still up to discover the shadiness that began on Black Ops 2's subreddit, about 12 days before the map came out, by a user named 3arc Can Suck It. This account was really living up to the name and very angry, with the title saying, "I'm leaking Mob of the Dead, hashtag you, Treyarch." This was an account claiming to have worked with Treyarch during the time of Mob of the Dead, and the post is eerily accurate, pointing to new features like making it new player friendly, adding the cast, ziplining, side Easter eggs, buildable weapons, the specific weapons in the box, and more. It was all too believable when you had the exact weapon names, exact naming conventions of the map, and gimmicks that were new to this map too. Now this is also where there's fallacies in this post too, like claiming perks existed which never came true, a separate purgatory mode that was selectable where you're just high and in the afterlife mode permanently, Brutus, the prison's warden, which is just so far off, and just the wording of things that might have come true to some degree, like pointing out that there's fog around the island and that there is a confusing Easter egg with the cast in space-time, like we haven't seen these things before, and like fog wouldn't be believable on a map on an island with zombies. I'm not saying this post is 100% fake or that it's 100% real. I'm just saying that there is a lot that is very accurate and some that doesn't exactly line up, especially for someone who has worked on the game before. It's also very possible that this user may have shared some more secret info to our World's First team, or hell, to anyone who was willing to message and listen to him, as things can change from dev time to the map's release. And some features, like the return of PhD Flopper, weren't entirely off the mark, as it would return in the Grief game mode and in Buried as a permaperk. On Mob of the Dead, Just like Mule Kick, it was a teaser outside of the map. So let's bring you back. This post was 12 days out from release of the map, but then there was even more at play, like an entire achievement list leaking before the map was even out. But the controversy didn't end there, as an even bigger drop and wider rabbit hole would follow, including an array of deleted videos and some attempts at erasure of the story. Play the Game Central made a video of their world's first clear of Mob of the Dead's Easter egg just about an hour after the map had been released, with just the finale shown. At least that's the info I was given by sources around at that time, because the video has been deleted. In this, there was no guide, no explanation, and a lot of foul play claims. So some curious folk looked around and did some digging, and found videos where Play the Game Central was talking about details of the map before it even came out, claiming to have known someone who worked at Treyarch and more. Now, these could be typical vague claims for the sake of playing the viewers, faking a story or a map, or claiming to know what others didn't for some sick YouTube cash, but have a listen to this and see for yourself what you think.
And I think the most important thing on day one, if you're trying to do the Easter egg, sorry, just to come back to that, is that very first lyric in my song. You need to align yourself, which is going to help you greatly, actually.
This paired with all the leaks of the map itself, either true or false, wouldn't be enough to know that foul play was at hand. I mean, I can't just outright call them cheaters when they got information that could have been easily paired with the historical zombie map context and a Reddit post of claims from someone claiming to be a developer. Like, they would have to admit the foul play themselves for me to make that claim. Oh, they did. Play the Game Central would go on to make a response to this news, stating,
so we'll be showing you that tomorrow. Sorry to sound cryptic, it's just obviously with this kind of response to our videos, which I always knew was going to happen, as I said, I don't particularly feel in a generous mood when it comes to the other people who, from what I've heard, are bad-mouthing us. So for now, we're going to keep it close to play the game and our close friends like Dalek and Ali A and Rad Austin, if you want, all this stuff, all these people that kind of have supported us for a long time, and that is very important to us. And the people who badmouth us are, they're the ones who wait 2 weeks until they actually figure it out.
The difficult place this all falls under is a gray area of what is actually cheating. With no sanctioned or official race to complete the Easter egg first, one could argue it's hard to say anything has been actually cheated here. There's somewhat of a moral issue if you're claiming to be the first to discover something legitimate and bragging about it. So the whole situation is just weird. So I want to know what you think. Was PTG cheating by having access to the map's information 2 days early? Was this some sort of planned out thing? Or was this just a big ruse? It seems like there was also a lot of tension between PTG and NGT Zombies for being the first to get the guides out on both ends. But ultimately, I find myself somewhere in between on this story. It's not as easy to point out given that we don't have access to the original world's first video. But being on the defense and deleting a video at least shows me personally that I lean more into the group having leaked information than anything. From my sources, the video was uploaded before anyone in the community had even found the spoon for the Easter egg step. And with the frequency of Easter egg guide steps being uploaded to YouTube by them before, it's more than likely it was leaked and cheated information. A real shame that a map with as much admiration as Mob of the Dead was tainted by leaking and cheating. But maybe it's befitting. A prison is the right place to cheat after all.
There is genuine and reasonable arguments to suggest that Mob of the Dead was the greatest map ever made at the point of its release. So how the hell did Treyarch even begin to try and follow this up just a few months later? The answer, a little bit of alcohol, a little bit of candy, and a lot of money.
The year was 2013, the summer of July. No responsibilities, just time for a brand new zombies map in the peak of Black Ops 2's golden era. Releasing was the final Victus map of Black Ops 2, and with the incredibly difficult maps of Transit and Die Rise that released before it, you'd be right to expect the greatest challenge yet. But that couldn't be further from reality. Betrothed in features players would take years and years to fully uncover. It's ironic that Buried is set deep under the earth. As you and the Victus crew discovered, this town became overrun with zombies and an evil witch that sits in an old creepy house, the kind you'd never trick or treat at. Some people believe this town to be stuck in a time loop, while others at the time of Black Ops 2's release believed this to be the work of Raul Menendez, Black Ops 2's main antagonist, but I'll let you guys fight amongst yourselves in the comments on that one. At first glance, it can be hard to understand how a dark, close quarters map abundant with tight alleyways and redundant of large open spaces could be considered easy by traditional zombies map difficulty standards. But drop down the hole and you realize that Treyarch did something very different on this map, as if they carefully considered the things that contributed to a negative or difficult experience in zombies, and just did the opposite. You are quickly introduced to the chalk wall-buy system that allows players to drop a weapon for an easy 1,000 points, or 2,000 points if strategically used during a double points power-up, contributing to higher points for quicker door, perk, and box buys. The next piece of the ease occurred when players found the jail cell keys. Now, who was in the cell? How about a giant man named Leroy? Not much was known about Leroy back then versus now, other than him probably being a reference to Lenny from the book of Mice and Men. But shockingly, Leroy isn't even his real name. His real name is Arthur. I guess the community really liked the name Leroy, so it just got stuck. Leroy, or Arthur, assists with just about anything you want him to, as long as you give him some candy or some booze, which is honestly a pretty good incentive I'd give into as well. The versatility of Leroy was vast, and there's bound to be features you've forgotten or never even knew 11 years on from release. Giving Leroy booze would force him to clear obstacles, opening the map without players needing to spend points. Or he'd even hold a crawler indefinitely for you, allowing you to complete the Easter egg steps or just go to the toilet. Leroy could also smash the box into place, preventing it from moving with the dreaded teddy bear, and overall, he just helped to drastically ease so many of the traditional zombies pain points that bothered players on literally every other map to the point. Speaking of the box, it also featured 3 incredibly wonderful weapons that helped make Buried possibly the easiest map in Zombies history, with 2 of them being exclusive to Buried itself. The Raygun Mark II was introduced in Buried and was everything the OG Raygun wished it was, offering great damage increases, accuracy, ammo, and most importantly, removing the splash damage that made the Raygun so dangerous in the previous maps. This would not remain exclusive to Buried, but it was a must-have for players on the map. However, it was Buried's 2 exclusive wonder weapons that had the biggest effect on easing the map's difficulty. The Paralyzer was the crown jewel of this map, taking the form of everything Transit's jet gun wished it was. It didn't need to be crafted and built like the jet gun. It couldn't break like the jet gun. It could be pack-a-punched, unlike the jet gun, and it enabled movement tech that the jet gun could only dream of, which became especially useful in one area of Buried. With these 2 wonder weapons, it really seemed as if Treyarch considered the failures of previous wonder weapons and sought to fix them with revised models. The final wonder weapon was the most controversial one ever made, the Time Bomb. This damn wonder grenade was so broken because of its core functionality that allowed users to rewind the entire game back to the point in which they placed the time bomb. You could be on round 31 at the end of the fantastic Easter egg we will be getting into later into the video, and then your teammate could sneeze, slip, and hit the time bomb button to bring you back to round 1. If used as intended, the time bomb could be pretty useful at making the game easier, allowing teams to revert from sticky situations and game-ending downs. However, it was never used like this for most teams, and mostly just made for funny time bomb trolling online.
Yes, I got Raygun number 2!
Yeah, boy.
Oh man, I was about to get it again. Who used the frickin'? Oh my god. You shouldn't have said that. He used his time bomb so we could go back in time. When someone got a ray gun. You.
This rightfully never made a return in any Zombies map, but it wasn't for any of the reasons above. Its removal from future entries to the Zombies franchise was because of its contribution to the most fundamentally broken and difficult easing feature of this map, the bank. The bank had made previous appearances in the previous 2 Victus maps, but its most prolific impact was on Buried, and players could use time bombs to glitch the bank and deposit hundreds of thousands of points with relative ease. While the map was easy for every reason discussed, the map also had a lot of small Easter egg rewards that made it even easier. My favorites always included the woman in black in the house. This was actually the inventor of the iconic Pack-a-Punch, Jebediah Brown's mother. She was, in his moment of weakness, dug up from her grave and put into Pack-a-Punch itself, turning her into this ghost lady. She was unlocked in our game by Leroy bulldozing into her fence, and was really spooky to younger Evan, as once you entered her house and ran through it, she would attack at full speed. But once you got past her and her point grabbing, she would actually reward you with a free perk. Another free perk could be obtained with the ballistic knife in the bar. By shooting it at the dartboard, she would begin to play a tune, and if you went to the basement of her house, she would be seen playing the same tune on the piano, and you could give her a tip for a free perk. That's not to say you were completely invincible on this map though. Between the holes in the tight narrow caves making you near death on a fall, the narrow pathing in the map's design not really allowing for trains, and the confusing layout of the hedge maze, which changed every time you entered it. But these small flickers of difficulty were quickly mitigated when you realized that the paralyzer allowed you to fly over the doors of the hedge maze, and training wasn't necessary when everyone just sat in the most OP camping spot of all time next to Juggernog. For those who really still can't comprehend the ease of Buried, and the one keyboard warrior who will comment that it's harder than Die Rise, you could literally have a Pack-a-Punch Ray Gun Mark II, Pack-a-Punch Paralyzer, another Pack-a-Punch weapon of your choice, 7 perks, and 3 buildables built all before round 1 had even finished. And if that doesn't make it the easiest map of all time, I don't know what will. However, there is something that is difficult on this map. As a send-off to Treyarch in his last map as director of zombies, Jimmy Zielinski put a lot of effort into stepping up the buried Easter egg. To me, this map is often cited as easy and fun, but only one of those remains true for its Easter egg. And as the zombies community would come to find out, the Easter egg main quest is also often cited as the toughest of the Zielinski era. By this point in Zombies, we have seen Easter eggs that span days, others that were solved in mere hours, and unfortunately some that came with some cheating controversy. This one was no different in the controversial department, but thankfully the community was quick not to regard the cheating team from taking glory. Play the Game Central was the subject of controversy in Mob of the Dead for having leaked information and steps of the Easter egg at his disposal before the map had even been released. They were posting the world's first completion while everyone else was early into the map, and refused to post the steps / a guide right away. Ben from PTG even made it a point to only share information with YouTubers who treated him kindly. With that being said, PTG was first to Buried, but as Mr. Waffles explained when I asked him about it,
PTG had a reputation at this point, right? That meant that people were skeptical of them at the best of times, and so for them to come out and just have endings of Easter eggs didn't seem particularly believable to anybody, and especially if you're just going to post the very end, but you're not going to post the build-up, right? You're not going to stream you solving it. You're not going to discover it in step with the community. If you're just completely detached and far ahead from everyone else, then that's sus, right? And even to this very day, in the Easter egg hunts, the difference between the first team and the second team getting it is minutes usually, and occasionally we get into the sort of hours territory between Team 1 and Team 2, but that's pretty rare, right? Because everyone more or less moves through these steps in kind of unison. But that's not what happened here, and it was pretty clear to everybody that they hadn't arrived at their solution legitimately. So it kind of got written off by the whole community.
PTG was posting the endings of both sides of this Easter egg, but no steps. There's even a joke nodding to this fact in the world's first of the Maxis side, which we will touch on.
Woo! We're the first people to do it on YouTube that doesn't play the game. Woo! Take that NGT. Woo!
No, I have 3 guns.
The story goes that right when the map came out, the Easter egg hunt was on. Easter eggs in Black Ops 2 weren't servicing the fanbase in sheer puzzles and spectacle the way that Moon had. And although Mob of the Dead gave us a true game over screen and a way to beat the map, the fanbase still wanted to see how our Victus crew's story would finish. In comes legends bringing their communities together, like Mr. Waffles, Mr. Dalek JD, NGT Zombies, MC Sports Hawk, Codename Pizza, Liam Winter, Noah J, and more. As you know, Victus had both Richtofen and Maxis Easter egg steps. The main canon ending is technically Maxis, but Richtofen's diverts enough that both are worth discussing. The hunt began with an iconic intro. On July 2nd of 2013, Spiderbite discusses all the intel of Maxis and Richtofen's discussions.
Attention, my corporeal friends. You can hear me, yes? Our journey inches ever closer to its conclusion.
Essentially, the Easter egg is thrown at you right off the bat in Buried. Now, Richthofen's side and Max's side were a lot easier to follow this time, since they both start with two diverging paths, unlike Die Rise and Transit, which had the player in the same locations. The gallows and the guillotine were the two different locations. The first thing a Zombies Easter egg veteran would need for this one was fairly obvious: the wonder weapon, the paralyzer. But what for? Well, either shoot this enough to make these orbs glow, or use the resonator trap and they would break. The next step was found by Yay It Drops, who discovered that there was a lamp floating around the town with which throwing a grenade caused it to drop and you could interact with it. In true Ghost Hunter fashion, filling up this lamp with souls was required, but the means were different. Yay It Drops posted that Richthofen's side called for witches to be killed in order to fill up the lamp, while NGT Zombies posted that Max's side needed Leroy to kill zombies while Sugar rushed out. And this hilarious clip from back then just basically sums it up. Have a listen.
Okay, so this is what we did. Now he takes off, and I think it has to do with the zombies, like the stink zombies. When the zombies stink and he gets in front of it, he's like, ew, that stinks. I'm going away now. So what we did, we ended up getting a few kills, and he just ran away. And then we decided, okay, well, next round, we're gonna round up a bunch of zombies, and then we're gonna get them to kill a bunch. And you do hear the indications that the lantern is being filled. Maxis does give you some audio cues, and then here's what happens when what I believe is we filled the entire lantern, and Maxis comes on, and this is what he says. No!
Now, you might be thinking, well, this Easter egg so far is just as easy as the map itself. And while I agree with you, I think the next step is where the community should have been stumped for a while. See, after filling the lantern, this message or code appeared right outside the saloon. It's essentially a tic-tac-toe cipher, where by breaking it into 3 letters at a time, you can decrypt your answer. You just need to visualize it like these great guides from back then.
This will reveal a piece of ciphertext on the wall. Now, I'm not going to get you to decrypt it yourselves or anything like that. I'm literally going to give you the 5 options of things that it could be and what they translate to within the game.
So after watching those videos and seeing how difficult it could be, do you think the community solved it, or do you think they brute forced it? The community decided that punching appropriate signs in the tunnels caused a wisp to spawn in. Now, how did they decide to do this? Galvanuckles were making a sound when they punched the signs in the tunnels. Guiding the wisp was not an easy task either, and really stepped up the challenge of a low difficulty map. You needed the new perk Vulture Aid to even find the damn thing, since it let you see through walls, and this step was different depending on which scientist you chose to work with. Now, Max's side was guiding the wisp through a bunch of zombies to keep the current charged, and this was a major pain for anyone who couldn't run trains around the map. You really just needed a lot of zombies. MC Sport Talk was the first to upload about this step on July 3rd of 2013, just passing by Spider Bite from NGT Zombies. Richthofen's side of this was completed first by Yay It Drops, and this one worked by having to corner the wisp. This meant positioning your team throughout the map to run into it when it spawned in, and the timer was very quick. It was a good thing Leroy could hold a crawler for you, or this would have taken a long time for teams. Once the wisp was either trapped at the guillotine or charged at the gallows, teams were on the hunt. If a puzzle code was brute forced and solved rather quickly, then this was no problem, right? While Richthofen's side needed the time bomb and some soul collection. With the time bomb specifically, this was one of the hardest, if not the coolest steps zombies had ever seen. This is also where information on who was first was getting hard to track. So the step was discovered to go like this. A time bomb placed on the guillotine takes you to a paradox, an infinity round, where zombies don't die. In fact, the players needed monkey bombs so they didn't die almost instantly. The goal here was to find 4 bodies of the players themselves out of 13 potential spots, where you were looking for a single switch for the guillotine. This was easily the hardest step to do out of the entire Easter egg, both sides included, since you had very little retries, and it was very easy to die from zombies that didn't die and seemingly kept spawning. Even finding a body didn't mean you found the switch, and if you went down with the switch, it would fall off of the player, causing so much confusion if somebody went down in that time. There is also added frustration that the Easter egg would sometimes soft lock, as the switch would just fall through the map instead of falling on the ground. You could tell the team at Treyarch really wanted the masters of the Easter egg community to do this. After this step, and we're going to stick with Richtofen for this, the next one was going to the maze and flipping the levers in the correct order, since it changed per game. In fact, some of the maze even changed every time you walked in. And the final step was one of contention for a world's first completion. This step was called Sharpshooter, and it was some Old West target practice. Interacting with the wish fountain outside of the candy shop brought targets around the town. The community basically agreed that the chalk-by PDW was your best friend for this one, and the goal was to not miss a single target from all 4 players. But I always remember that one friend that would just say, "Yeah, I'm done," and then you'd have to reset anyway. Clearing all of these would reward teams with the achievement Mind Games. You would also get all perma perks and this dialogue.
Finally, I am in control! The ether is mine to manipulate as I wish. The moon is now my own personal plaything!
But with this achievement unlocked, that didn't mean there wasn't a true ending. But before we do that, we should talk about the canon ending for Ludwig Maxis. Maxis didn't have players going back in time, but instead a whole nother puzzle itself. This was called the Bell Puzzle, and to say that it's a trial and error puzzle is an understatement. Essentially, players are put in different positions around the map and they have to ring bells corresponding to one player reading a light board in the mansion. This step was frustrating, mostly due to players in these rooms and coordinating the lights of the bells in each one. Now, I won't lie, this one is easier than Richtofen's step, but this one was more dependent on communication, so it was definitely difficult in a different kind of way, making both scientists actually have some intrigue to do their Easter eggs. Once the players rang these bells with the help of Mr. Dalek JD's guide on the topic, the sharpshooter step was up again, the one that he called very annoying in his video. This video also has an extremely 2013 ad for zombies. Just please have a listen.
And this app is called the Ultimate Utility app for Black Ops 2, and this app will be so helpful, and it's really helped me out in terms of after I've played zombies and I want to jump into multiplayer but I'm not too sure what guns to go for, what perks, especially when there's new maps. I'm not too sure about the layouts and where like domination flags are or best parts of maps are. Then this is a fantastic app.
This step, just like Richtofen's infinite round step, was a big difficulty jump for Easter eggs. Buried had trained its players to become akin to ease throughout its tiny layout, but having trial and error puzzles for each scientist showed that this Easter egg brought up more team coordination and difficulty than anything the Victus crew had seen previously. So now that both scientists' Easter eggs were out of the way, players began to wonder what the hell this box with all the lights in the courthouse was all about. Well, as each map had progressed, we have discussed a nav card and a nav table. This was built on each Victus map, including Buried. With each nav card inserted and each scientist Easter egg completed, players were making progress to the true ending. I spoke to Mr. Rafflewaffles, as he was the world's first legit completion on Buried's Easter egg with Richtofen, alongside his teammates of Liam Winter, Nick That Gaming Show not using leaked intel, Zombie Frenzy, and Saggy Berries, with Liam helping from the outside while the team was subbing in. On the world's first, Milo had this to say.
Buried was wild because I actually started the map late, personally, so I was at college when it came out, and so I was seeing the first couple of steps starting to be solved while I was still at college. Then I rushed home. I was like, I can't wait any longer. I've just got to get home here. Rushed home, jumped in with my team, and started doing things like, for example, we solved the cipher that you used during the Easter egg, and I have a video about that, which feels very dated at this point. We got in this really awkward position where we felt like we'd gotten as far as we could in my team of me, Zombie Frenzy, Star Wars Bob, and Nick That Gaming Show. We were all together and we were pushing forwards, but we were stuck. And then Liam hopped onto Skype and he messaged us and said, hey guys, I know what the next step is. Like, I'm pretty confident I know how you do it. And the problem was that Liam wasn't in the game. And so we basically had to, as a group, decide that Jose, Zombie Frenzy, was gonna drop out of the match, and then we would start a new match and invite Liam and get to that step and then do it, which was very controversial because that meant that Jose was technically not first in the world in the team, except that he'd been in the team up until that point. So as far as I'm concerned, we just had a 5-man first in the world for the first time ever. And I really distinctly remember as well, when we got it done and we got it finished, it was so late that I had college again, like an hour later or something. And so I remember saying to Liam, it is absolutely integral you get your guide up ASAP. Normally it would be me, right, making my no-nonsense guide. But I was like, Liam, here's my footage, here's everything you need. Please make your guide the first one out here because we've been first, and it would suck if we then had to wait because we then got beaten to being first guide because I was at college. Like, that would be really unfortunate. And he did it and he smashed it, and I then made my guide, like, I don't know, that evening or something when I got home from college. And that's the story of Buried.
Richtofen had been moved to a talking zombie. Play That Game was not given props for World's First, and the hunt continued despite them, with the community rallying against the cheating way. And now Samantha was back in control for our final map. And yes, that's right, Origins.
Most people realize how much the community loved Origins, but few truly understand how important this map would become for the future of zombies. So, allow me to explain it for you, and in the process of doing so, uncover the forgotten secrets hidden amongst the trenches.
Call of Duty Black Ops 1 released on November 9th of 2010, and it marked the start of one of the most innovative and successful modes in modern gaming. Treyarch would go down on an absolute tear from 2010 through 2016 with its zombie mode, creating unforgettable experiences that many players feel still haven't been replicated to this day. In those years, Treyarch managed to do something that very few developers of modern media can: improve their games further year on year. And it's for this reason that the majority of fans hold the sentiment that Black Ops 3 Zombies is truly Treyarch's greatest triumph. However, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was Black Ops 3. And today, we uncover the deeply rich and complex story of the most important map in Zombies history, Origins.
My name is Samantha. I'm going to tell you how all this really began.
Prior to Origins, the Black Ops 2 Zombies maps seem to have been built for casual high-round experiences, with a hidden Easter egg that some teams would choose to research and complete, with a clear separation between the map and the Easter egg. In Origins, however, the Easter egg is the clear goal, and you really can't get away from or take your eyes off of it. Players would be met with maps on the wall, circling a so-called crazy place, radio logs with backstories of Dr. Ludwig Maxis, Group 935, and terrifying sounds of 200-foot robots slamming their feet into the ground or gunfire from the sky. Seriously, go to any bunker, generator, or room in Origins, and the likelihood is something will be related to or point towards the Easter egg. The map is truly drenched in atmosphere. We will dive more heavily into the Easter egg later, but Origins began with a lot of other new design quirks that are more than worth a mention. The first change players would instantly notice was the introduction of a brand new starter pistol, the Mauser C96, and although it performed almost identically to the M1911 we'd seen previously, the new pistol for this map made Origins feel different and special right away. Mob of the Dead had made some improvements to the part system, keeping track of collecting parts in the Scores UI, as well as noting which parts teams were missing. Treyarch innovated this even further for Origins, as parts for this map didn't need to be picked up one at a time and taken to the build table. Once collected, they would all just go into your giant invisible Santa sack ready for crafting, which was especially helpful on a map the size of Origins. Origins was huge, like really huge. While Transit was a bigger map, Transit didn't have cesspits of slowing mud that limited a player's movement. Like Transit, Origins did have a vehicle that helped players navigate the map in the form of a gigantic tank. However, some players would opt to use the movement tech of the Pack-a-Punch Mauser to blast through the map.
Thank you, Boomhilda!
Other new innovations included dig spots for loot, the Crazy Place, a Wonder Fizz machine to satisfy the untapped gambling urges of Zombies players for Activision to exploit further in future games, and this asshole. We'll talk about panzers more later into the video, but these creatures were really a living/digital nightmare for little Evan. Despite all of this innovation, Treyarch's greatest accomplishment on this map would possibly be the introduction of zombie blood, and solely for the voice line that came with it.
Zombie blood.
Play that again.
Zombie blood.
Okay, just one more time.
Zombie blood.
Perfection. With all of this grand innovation, players were more than ready to begin the hunt for Black Ops 2's Easter egg finale. Ironically, the hunt would begin with the ending. The controversial Play the Game Central channel would post the datamine ending cutscene early, before the Easter egg had even been completed. I have a whole video on PTG and their cheating scandal that I'd encourage you to watch if you want to know more. Treyarch had been using WebM formats to store their cutscenes and intro scenes for the campaign and zombies. This format was great for saving on files, but meant that once DLCs had been ripped from Xbox to PC, data miners could simply click open and play the cutscene with no extra steps. Thankfully, the concept of an ending cutscene in zombies was so new that many players didn't really know what they were watching at the time and disregarded this as some sort of teaser. Outside of these problems, the Easter egg began on August 27th of 2013. Amazon's takeover of Twitch deleted a vast amount of clips from back at this time, but I've pieced together the story as best as I can. Firstly, players began by trying to make sense of the visual clues I mentioned earlier. However, Origin's increased focus on the Easter egg meant that for the first time, players were granted more hints via the voice of Samantha.
You have to help me. Please. There is a way to open the gateway.
If she wasn't yelling at players in her polite voice, she was yelling at players in an evil zombie voice. And it's no surprise that zombies wanted to smack the living hell out of us if she's always this rude. Now that voice line may sound somewhat familiar to you, and it sounded very familiar to players attempting to discover the Easter egg for the first time too. Players would come to find out that every step of the Origins Easter egg references Reznov's 8-step escape from Vorkuta in Black Ops 1. Now, I wasn't able to confidently nail down a reason on why Treyarch chose to do this, so let me know if you have an idea why. Securing the keys meant something less literal in Origins than it did in Black Ops 1. Players would come to find out that it wasn't the keys they were trying to find, but instead 4 elemental staffs they needed to build. Now, this is not going to be a step-by-step guide, but I will be glazing some of the steps because it remains some of Treyarch's most creative work to date. And more importantly, the innovative nature of these puzzles fundamentally changed how the zombies community looked at what a wonder weapon could be, and how they could be obtained in zombies. Players were first introduced to the idea of elemental staffs when they were prompted to place the gramophone down at the entrance to the crazy place. Inside the crazy place was about as alienated players had ever really felt from the dark, spooky setting zombies had always seen before, as it was incredibly bright and colorful. The above ground setting of a dark and gloomy World War I battlefield only helped to enhance this contrast, and in many ways, opening the door to the bright and colorful crazy place probably had the more metaphorical impact of opening zombies in general to a more bright, colorful, and glowing setting, with all of the subsequent Black Ops 3 maps moving to a more luminescent and vivid color palette. Players were familiar with the idea of a craftable wonder weapon with the Sliquifier and the jet gun, but having 4 on one map was pretty mind-blowing for those in 2013. The staffs were a little harder to get too, with them often making use of Origin's new features, such as climbing into the robot's head without getting stomped on, using the shovel to dig but only during a snowstorm, shooting down a glowing plane, and even jumping off the tank into no man's land. While the parts for the jet gun and the Sliquifier had been just scattered around Transit and Die Rise respectively, Origin showed Treyarch's new increased emphasis on connecting a map to its Easter egg, something we would begin to see even more moving into Black Ops 3 and beyond. 12 years on, it's hard to nail down the order in which the staffs were discovered, with MC Sports Talk and Soflo Antonio both uploading a video on all 4 staffs. Once all staffs were in hand, Samantha would yet again come on the intercom to let you know that you're not done.
We're so couldn't save me, but you can. He promised me. When the final steps are taken, the gateway to Agartha will open. There's more to do. Father said the staffs weren't powerful enough.
It wasn't until 14 hours into the hunt that Sports Talk uploaded the first gameplay of the next steps, showcasing 2 fully upgraded staffs. These staffs had insane abilities, including one that allowed you to flip it around to shoot an instant revive stim at teammates. While Samantha had given some small hints for the base staffs, the ultimate upgraded staff puzzles were completely hidden from players, with no audible hints, only symbols and visual puzzles. And the puzzles that Treyarch had created were incredibly innovative and really interesting to solve. However, according to SpiderBite's videos, half of the staff puzzles were actually brute force the first time around, completely ignoring Treyarch's work. The ultimate lightning staff was the first staff solved, and it has the most basic puzzle out of all of the 4 staffs, because it's the only one that doesn't really require any math. The first half of the puzzle had the community solve a small musical puzzle. The way the devs intended players to figure this out was to notice that the wall that the puzzle takes place on looks kind of like a piano, as well as the hints for what notes needed to be played on the piano are actually laid out kind of like sheet music, accurately telling the player what notes needed to be played. SpiderBite points this out in his video on the staffs.
All right, so here's the layout of our keyboard, and we've numbered each of the triangles as well as put a letter identifying the note to be played. All right, so all you have to do is match up those previous images we showed and activate the notes. We did have one glitch on one of them where I think it was number 8 wouldn't activate once, so we just made sure that was the last one we activated for that chord in order to make it work. And also we did do them from left to right. Not sure if you can do them out of order, if you can do them from right to left or the middle one first and then the other 2. We did them from left to right, and that's how we succeeded in completing the part.
The second half of the lightning staff was much simpler and only involved small map changes. At this point, it was assumed players would have found the large circuit breakers in key locations around the map. Those would have started sparking, and if the players interacted with any of the 4 or made it face the same direction as the breaker, the player would have heard a rejection quote, saying something like, "That's not right," or "That's not really the correct solution," or "Hey, maybe I should subscribe to this channel since I've been watching this whole series and now I'm up to Origins and I really like these videos." However, if the player got the switch on the circuit to face the correct direction, it would stop sparking. Once all switches faced the correct direction, a sound cue would be played and a massive beam would begin emanating out of the tomb, indicating that, well, maybe that's the direction we ought to go. Once in the tomb, players noticed the previously dormant central floating pillar would now have a bunch of multicolored lights corresponding to the 4 staff colors. 4 switches in the room would now become interactable, and each switch had a particular angle on the pillar, indicating that was the slab of rock it would be tied to. When the switches were interacted with, it caused the corresponding rock section to move, and its colored light to switch. Once all sections of the pillar were the same color, players were intended to shoot the orb that sat below the pillar, and it would return to the Crazy Place totem. The next staff to be discovered, the Ultimate Ice Staff, was so complex for players to crack the first time around that it would eventually just become brute forced. The actual intended solution method for the puzzle is incredibly interesting, however, and something that very few players truly understand, even 12 years on. The staff puzzle was just downright evil, requiring the players to both notice a base 3 and base 4 code was placed in the hint.
What the f does that even mean?
For example, if the blue square gave the player a number like this, we would first need to decipher what number this is. Using the circles, we can figure that a filled circle is a 1 and an empty circle is a 0. And if multiple circles are stacked on top of each other, we can just assume that to be a 2. In the example, we have a filled, an empty, and an empty, which lined up makes 100. We then need to read this number out in a base 3 format. So for that 100, we are talking 1 times 3 times 3, plus 0 times 3, plus 0 times 1. This gives us a final number of 9. We then need to find the ceiling tile that is also encoded to be a 9. However, the ceiling tiles are not in base 3 format, but instead they are encoded in base 4 format. So the player needs to decipher all of the ceiling tiles while zombies are trying to eat that booty. The way these symbols are translated into numbers is as follows. A singular triangle is a 0. A triangle with a line going straight down is a 1. A 1 symbol with a singular line going out to the right is a 2. And a 1 symbol with 2 lines going out to the right is a 3. In order in the example, the symbol translated numbers are 13, 2, 22, 3, 21, and an off-screen 0. If we use base 4 to decode all of these symbols translated numbers, we get 1 times 4 plus 3 times 1 equals 7. 2 times 4 equals 8. 2 times 4 plus 2 times 1 equals 10. 3 times 4 equals 12. 2 times 4 plus 1 times 1 equals 9. And 0 times 4, well, that's just 0. Which means finally, all we have to do is shoot the matching numbers, which in this case is the 5th one, since both it and our blue square equal 9. Once the correct tile was shot, they flipped over and grayed out like this. Now, you just had to repeat that 5 more times, and the first half of this puzzle was completed. Now, how they actually did this.
I'm trying to make sense of it, and to be quite honest, I don't think we ever did make sense of it. It was just a matter of going through and just keep, we kept hitting them in order to make them match up.
After completing the first half of the puzzle, 3 animated ice gem colored tombstones spawned outside of the map. All the player had to do was finish all of the math homework, then shoot each of the tombstones with the ice staff to freeze it, then shoot it again with a regular bullet to break it. Over a decade later, it's hard to be sure whether the wind or fire staff upgrades was solved next, although I'm going to guess it's more than likely fire staff being first, as its puzzle is less complex than the former. Players would find that killing enough zombies on a grate would light 4 crucibles. The community then noticed the flaming base 3 code on the church and translated the numbers to decimal. In the bottom of the church, there are torches that line up to all possible numbers from base 3 code. And you would need to shoot the 4 after deciphering and relating them to the code.
I've come so far. Please keep going. The journey is near its end.
Finally would come the wind staff, featuring the single most insane puzzle step through all of this. And it still impresses me to this day that they managed to figure this out. Oh wait, they didn't. It was just brute forced again. In the crazy place around the wind tunnel area, there were 4 encoded numbers. They were encoded in base 4 and needed to be translated. These are the decoded base 4 numbers from the symbols. We needed to then decode each of these into decimal, which from left to right is 26, 13, 12, and 27. Next, the player was supposed to notice the pillars line up with the lines on the turnstile on the ceiling. Next comes, in my opinion, the most insane part of any of these staff puzzles. Treyarch wanted players to then do double decoding of 12 symbols on the turnstile, while zombies were trying to attack you. After decoding, all that's left was to make sure that the numbers on the turnstile added together to equal the number that was on the pillar in decimal. In my example, I picked the 12 pillar to show up, but as we know, this is how the community solved this step.
Probably occurred via trial and error. We did try a lot of trial and error stuff, but every single ring has to be in a specific position. And I think what it is it's an additive subtractive thing. So if you line up the symbols, the symbols line up with the stone that has the markings in them, and the symbols actually are additive / subtractive in order to create the symbol that is shown on the corresponding pillar. Okay.
The map change section of the wind staff involves smoking chimneys that appeared all around the map. All the player had to do was make the smoke blow towards the mound by shooting the chimneys with the wind staff. And that is the way the devs intended the wind staff puzzle to be solved. The staffs took the community a full day to upgrade, and this was with brute forcing, which really makes me question how long this could have taken if brute forcing was removed from the realms of possibility. The insane process to upgrade the staffs was a real pivotal moment in the history of wonder weapons for Call of Duty. Staffs had set a new standard for how strong wonder weapons could be, as well as how they could be crafted and upgraded. The Slickwifier was cool and unique, and being lucky enough to get the Raygun Mark II from the box was a great feeling. But truly nothing could be compared to the rewarding feeling of unlocking the incredible power of the goddamn ice staff. Many will argue to this day that the heights of the staffs have never been matched by Treyarch, but the standard they set certainly made them think more about the wonder weapons they added to zombies, and that can be seen clear as day in Black Ops 3's maps. A whole day later, players had finally secured the keys, and they would now need to ascend from darkness. Once again, in a slightly less literal way than Reznov. Spiderbite cited in his video that people noticed there was a fire pedestal and figured that there just had to be more to it. Spiderbite was the first to discover and apply the method of going into the Odin, Thor, and Freya robots. And yes, those are the actual robots' names. Annoyingly, after working so hard to get the staffs, players had to give them away to progress towards the next step of the Easter egg. Although the final requirement to complete step 2 required players to figure out a whole new side Easter egg called the G-Strike, the G-Strike was hard for a lot of the community to find, with men finding it increasingly difficult, and unfortunately, I'm still yet to find it to this day.
That's what she said.
This wasn't the first time players needed to solve a side Easter egg to progress the main quest, with Mob of the Dead requiring the Hell's Retriever to break the cycle. Damian Wright was the lucky man to find the G-Strike first, posting that it had to do with the blue 115 meteorites and fist stones. Once solved, the G-Strike would become a crazy replacement for the player's tactical grenade. By this point, players had spent close to 2 days on the Easter egg. They had upgraded 4 wonder weapons, and upgraded melee, and upgraded tactical, and we were surely nearing the end of this crazy journey. But no, it was only time to move on to step 3. Although it's clear to see now, it's around this point that the community pieced together that the Easter egg was one large tribute to Vorkuta, as Spiderbite points out in his Rainfire video.
I know this is kind of the third step, but these steps are now following along with the steps of from Vorkuta from Black Ops 1. You remember the 8 steps. 1, secure the keys. 2, ascend from darkness. We've completed those. 3 is Rainfire, and you'll get audio indications from Samantha, as particularly when you are in zombie blood mode. You'll get an indication from her saying, hey, Rainfire. She'll say, Rainfire.
I think it's even crazier that this step took about 15 hours between Spiderbite uploads to figure out what to do. They realized the step required them to hop into a giant's head and push a red button, then quickly fire the G-Strike onto this cracked cement of a bunker, which really seems like such a simple step in hindsight. This is where directionally Easter eggs get confusing and take a lot of time, and if there wasn't a visual or audible cue to interact with, then the community would get stumped. But I really liked testing the player base in this way. It was like Treyarch viewed it as a community hunt and not an individual puzzle. What do you think though? Drop me a comment. I just talked about hints that weren't too obvious, and now Samantha is flying a little too close to the goddamn sun. If this Easter egg had you essentially suiting up in every facet of your kit, then it made sense that the remaining buildable had to play a part too. This was called the Maxis drone. And while I could sit here and break down how the community solved this, it was really just finding generic parts around the map. What made this one special was the result of unleashing the Horde. The Panzers, if unprepared for them, were a run killer, and I'd love to see a compilation of teams experiencing this for the first time. Nowadays, we're pretty used to crazy mini-bosses or hordes and Easter eggs, but this set a real precedent back in Origins, as we had never seen a step like this before. I could sit here and applaud Treyarch for what is actually quite a cool step from a narrative and gameplay point of view, but the little Evan still inside me will simply never forgive them for the horror those panzers put me through. Following the panzer step, players were met with step 5, which wasn't too hard for teams to figure out at the time, as the clue was pretty self-explanatory. Just as you did while escaping Vorkuta, it was clear this voice line meant destroying an aircraft of some type, like you had done before with the fire staff. The catch this time was that you needed to be in zombie blood. Spiderbite points out that the odd sounds you would hear in normal mode helped indicate players towards this. Once he and his team shot down the plane in zombie blood, they had to put out multiple fires around the map on wagons with the wind staff. Doing this spawned in a zombie blood near Pack-a-Punch. And I'll just let Spiderbite take it from here.
So here I am at the top of the dig site, just waiting for the zombie blood to spawn in here. And then what you're going to do, the beast runs clockwise around the base of the dig site. So what we want to do, and he's quick, so you don't want to try and catch him. You actually want to drop down and go counterclockwise. And I've got the fire staff, best thing to use. Charge it up. I'm just going to come down here. There's a church over on the right-hand side. And I'm going to walk a little bit, then I'm going to charge it up, anticipating that he's going to be coming towards me. And he's going to come. He's just a regular zombie, basically. But he's tough. If you just have a regular weapon, you may not be able to take him down. That's why I'm using the fire staff, the charge up fire staff. And look at that. It's Maxis. He hasn't been around since that previous step that we sent him into the pit.
After taking down the helicopter in Vorkuta, Reznov told Mason, which led to a very fun Death Machine gameplay sequence for players. At this point, Spiderbite and NGT Zombies were in the lead for World's First, when they noticed that the zombies' hands were glowing, wrongly believing that this was a Death Machine reference. There was no Death Machine on Origins, however, so they tried to use the next closest thing, the new MG08, but that didn't work. Then they tried to use an even bigger metal machine, the tank, but that didn't work either.
The Guardians of the Scroll must feel your might.
After listening to Samantha, they figured, what the heck, and went to the center pit where Templar zombies began to spawn with white hands. When punched with winded fists, the glow went away.
And I think I only have 1 or 2 of these Templar zombies left that I have to fist. I'm fisting the zombies until I get the drop. And you'll see it. It's like the Brofist stone. But it's glowing white, and then all you have to do is run over it, pick it up, and you have your, look at that, wield the fist of iron. Nice.
This stone gave a melee so strong it could one-hit zombies up to round 26, but then changed in Black Ops 3 to round 18. The players were now onto the final stretch to the world's first completion of Black Ops 2 Zombies finale. Step 7 was to raise hell. In this case, it didn't mean to raise a little demon child named Samantha, but instead defeating the souls of the ancients. To my knowledge, at this point, it was pretty much a neck-and-neck race between NGT Zombies and Mr. Rafflewaffles, and it went like this.
Nice! We freed Samantha. We got our achievement, Little Lost Girl. And that's step number 7, raise hell. So free the souls of the ancient ones, raising hell, I guess. We're raising the hell. Raise a little hell, raise a little hell, raise a little hell, right? We're not done yet. There's one last part. That is step number 8.
We know that after this, Spiderbite would die and lost the world's first lead to Mr. Rafflewaffles. In the process of resetting, however, Mr. Rafflewaffles and his team of Liam Winter, Star Wars Bob, and Saggy Berries claimed victory, and it was great to see that Star Wars Bob had, at this point, grown a lot from Moon and the Shang days, to now being a part of quite a few world's firsts without the guides telling him what to do.
Oh my god! 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 I'm crying right now!
After the insane puzzle hell that Treyarch had put players through, you might think that the final step Milo's team completed to claim victory was super complex and difficult, but that solution was to just throw a damn Maxis drone into the big hole. This was truly game-changing for the zombies community in ways that it would take years to truly recognize. There was significant story progression, an ending cutscene, and the satisfying feeling you had done something really special for your run, in a way that no other map had provided before. That being said, at the time, there were really more questions than answers. Was it all a dream? Were the Origins the younger cast? Was Treyarch done with zombies after this? There's a lot of people that believe Origins was this beloved map for its ending, and while that's the case now, back then, this couldn't be further from the truth. The perception was that Treyarch was laughing at the player base for taking zombies so seriously, pushing players to the limit with the Easter egg and its puzzles, only for it to end with it seemingly all being a dream. With this being the first ending cutscene, some players were led to believe this would be the end of zombies, and that all the Easter eggs they had completed since Moon had just concluded with really the most simple and cliche ending possible. The reception was angry at the time, and I won't lie, I felt this way too as a kid. I couldn't believe that Treyarch would do this and end zombies in this way. As we know, we couldn't have been more wrong. Treyarch would propel zombies to new heights in Black Ops 3 and build off the incredible new fundamentals Origins had established. We have Origins to thank for a lot of what we would see in Black Ops 3, and one has to wonder whether Origins was Treyarch's testing ground to see how serious players were about zombies and the direction that Black Ops 3's zombie mode should actually take. After Origins, players would have to wait over 2 years for more Treyarch zombies. And there will be players who loved Black Ops 3, but were never around for Origins and don't realize how important this map was towards the creation of their golden age of zombies. If this is you, take some time to play it. It's truly a work of art.